Christianity changes individuals by conversion, not society by revolution. Jason is a new convert. He's one of those that believed up here in verse 4 and sought to bring them out to the people. That phrase, the people, refers to Jews. So they're bringing these new Christians down before a Jewish tribunal or a Jewish mob to try to use strong arm tactics to bring them back into the church back into the synagogue and shut down this new religion, new for them in that city. Now that brings us down to verse 6. And when they found them not, that is, they were looking for Paul and Silas. So I drew the V there, that those connectors back up, because that's the pronoun, and there's the antecedent up there in verse 4. When they found them not, they drew Jason and certain brethren. So they were able to find the converts, but not the preachers. The converts had hidden the preachers. We're going to see that momentarily. They wanted to protect them. So when they found them out, they drew Jason and certain brethren unto the rulers of the city, crying, these men have turned the world upside down, have come hither also. Mm-hmm. All right. Now I made just a 2-word sermon right here. And sometimes you don't have to preach a long sermon to have an effective sermon, right? So here's the sermon. Are we turning the world upside down? And if not, why not? Why aren't we? Let's turn the world upside down. Let's get busy. Let's start making converts. And if people get upset with us, that probably means we're doing something right. Otherwise, we would not have gotten their attention. So we want to be people that turn the world upside down. That takes courage. That takes prayer. That takes the power of the word. That takes consistency in living and also in message. So that would be a different sermon to preach on how to turn the world upside down. But I made a note up here. I think I got this out of a commentary in verse 6. When they can't find Paul and Silas, then they attack Jason. And I got this quote somewhere. I liked it, though. If a bull cannot bore a man, then he will toss his cloak. If he can't get all that he wants and he's just mad enough, he's going to do something. And so that's the way that these Jews are. They can't actually get to Paul and Silas, but oh well, let's attack Jason. He's not quite the prize we wanted, but he's one of them. So let's attack him. Now verse 7. So this is a new convert, 3 weeks in. If he were converted at the very beginning, might only be a day or a week, but he's a brand new Christian, and he is already being thrown to the wolves, but he handles it really well. Whom Jason hath received, so evidently Paul had been staying with Jason. These all do contrary to the decrees of Caesar. I mentioned earlier, Thessalonica was supportive of Caesar. They were the capital, and they could lose privileges, saying there is another king, one Jesus. And they troubled the people. Those are the Jews, and the rulers of the city. Those would have been Gentiles, when they heard these things. So this message resonates with this Jewish/Gentile city. Both groups are now upset. Now Jason has to pay money to pay a fine. Security, verse 9, when they had taken security of Jason and of the other, they let them go. And then the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night to Berea, 60 miles south of Thessalonica, near Pella, and coming thither went into the synagogue. I love this. Paul is undaunted. What does the word undaunted mean?
He's not remotely concerned.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not worried about it.
He doesn't slow down a bit. He just got run out of one synagogue, but he doesn't stand outside the next synagogue and say, I don't know if I should do this again. Didn't end so well last time. No, he goes straight in there and starts over. He is undaunted. And he went directly into the synagogues. He did not go get situated first. He did not find a place to stay. He didn't, let's lay out a plan. let's get a meal and talk about this. Nothing wrong with any of those things, but I just like how Paul is so zealous. He just, he gets there and he can't wait to get to the synagogue and start talking about Jesus again. And so he's evangelizing among his people first, to the Jew first, also to the Greek. So not only did the gospel go to the Jew first in the sense of the first few years of the gospel, from Acts 2 to Acts 10, those are Jews, or at least until Acts 8, and then the Samaritans halfway, and then to the Gentiles in chapter 10. Well, not only did that happen in the book of Acts as far as the gospel going out, but it also happened in cities where Paul went. He would go to the Jews first. He would go to the synagogue first, and then he would branch out to Gentiles also. But the Jews were especially prepared to receive the gospel. Therefore, that would be hopefully your richest fruit would come from them. All right, I think that's all I'll give you, unless you have any questions about Acts 17, 1 through 9. I just noticed one other note here, if you want this. 3 problems with the charges against Paul. This doesn't ring true at all when they said he's preaching another king. Jews were not champions of Caesar in the first place. They didn't like Caesar. They were always plotting. You don't have to read much into the book, the 89 chapters of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to see the zealots and the Jews, attitude toward the Romans. So they're coming off as insincere here. Number 2, Paul was peaceably teaching. He wasn't creating any violent mob scenes. He just is reasoning and opening and alleging. That's peaceable. And then number 3, Christianity changes individuals by conversion, not society by revolution. So the gospel is no threat to Rome. In fact, the next time you preach on the conversion of Saul of Tarsus, it's found 3 times in the book of Acts, Acts 9, Acts 22, Acts 26. Why 3 times? Well, it's not just for filler, it's not unnecessary repetition. The 3 conversions give us different details for one thing, but historically or textually in Acts 9, you have the history when it actually happened chronologically and the details that related to his trip to Damascus and what happened on that trip. Then in Acts 22, he is talking about his conversion, and he is showing the Jews that Christianity is the fulfillment of Judaism, not a threat to it. He's speaking to Hebrews in Acts 22. And then in Acts 26, he is showing to Festus and Agrippa that Christianity is no threat to the Roman Empire. It's not a political institution, and they will obey the laws of the empire. So you have those 3 different purposes for having the 3 accounts of Paul, and you also see that here, and that's the reason I thought of it. Christianity changes individuals by conversion, not society revolution. He's no threat to the Roman government. All right, anybody have a question or a comment from Acts 17 about the background of the gospel going to Thessalonica?
Yes, Alan, can you repeat? Can you repeat? I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
No,
can you repeat those 3 again? You said in Acts 22.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, I'll put it on the screen for you.
Okay.
I think I've got it at Acts 9. Also, I preached on this a couple of times recently. You probably could Google it and find it. I preached in Williamston, South Carolina, on the conversion of Saul, and I discussed those 3 chapters in that sermon. I also preached it last week in Nashville, Arkansas. I'm not sure I covered that point, but I did preach on the conversion of Saul of Tarsus. And this is the approach. You guys may want to preach this. This is not original to me, but I love it. I've adapted it. What Saul saw when he could not see. You ever preached that sermon? What Saul saw when he couldn't see, those 3 days he was blind, he saw a lot, you know. But I can't give you that. But let me see if I can find that. 3, I think maybe it's here. Why 3 accounts? There you go. So you want to do a screenshot, a camera shot, or write that down, then it's on the screen there for you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
No, let me
I didn't have a question. I had something put down though.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
With you had brought up the Jews working with those lewd men. My version says wicked men,
Okay.
but still the same. I put down John 15:18, where it says, Jesus says, if the world hates you, it hated me first.
Mm-hmm.
And then followed that up with Matthew 26:59 through 62, where Jesus faced the chief priests and the false witnesses, 2 men that should not work together.
That's a perfect parallel with this. The second
And then
one.
I put 1 Corinthians 11:1, where Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And so we talked about Paul being undaunted. Well, why is he? Well, he would, might look back to Jesus facing this and say, well, I'm on the right path.
Yeah. And that just reminded me of Jesus teaching, beware when all men speak well of you, right? If everybody likes us, we're probably not doing something right. As much as we want to be liked, but still.
My dad used to say all the time when we was talking to counseling parents, if your kids like you all the time, you're not doing your job.